So, welcome to the second of these lovely Monday morning conversations between Hazel and I. We are creating a series of lovely conversations about creative possibilities and invitations that we sort of both worked with over the period of lockdown and want to take further post-lockdown. And these conversations are sort of the idea. We don't pre-script them or plan them. We just see what arises and allow the creativity to show itself. So Hazel has a beautiful invitation and exercise that she's written. She wrote at the beginning of lockdown, and she's going to share that, and then there'll be a conversation between us to respond to it. And I have a tarot card which I normally bring into the dialogue. Okay.
Okay. So today we're on to day 2. This is our second conversation. And I checked with Anna that it's okay to also do day 4 because there's a little story that links them. So day 2 was, I wrote, my idea was to write obstacles, things that hold us back from living an authentic life, on pebbles from the beach. So I held each one in turn and open to the difficulty that it poses. Notice how much I want to hang on to obstacles, and how my whole personality is developed around fears and worries. And I threw them into the sea just to release them. And it was just a little ritual. So in itself, it was something quite small. And of course, just because I've written money worries on a pebble and thrown it into the sea doesn't mean that I've got rid of it, but it's kind of bringing it into the light, really. It was bringing the obstacles into the light for me to see these are the things that are getting in my way. And I put things like money worries, or having to prove myself, guilt, need for approval, self-doubt, not feeling that I belong, worries about ill health. And the sort of just having written them brought up the more sensory feeling of those fears, of those obstacles, of the realizing that these are the things that make me say no to life. These are the things that make me stay small, because I'm frightened, I'm concerned about them. And then what happened after I'd thrown them into the sea, the following day, I was walking on the beach and I noticed all these pebbles with words written on them. And I thought, oh God, no, the sea has rejected my obstacles. It's throwing them back at me. So I went down to have a look. And in fact, they were not my pebbles. Somebody else had been on the beach writing on pebbles.
Wow. Oh, amazing.
But they had been writing blessings. So they were always like happiness, peace, lovely things. So day 4 for me was about writing blessings and leaving them on the beach. And what I tried to do was not to write the cliches, so not to sort of write happiness or peace or whatever. I tried to write the things that I feel really blessed by. And I'm sorry, I'll just go on for a couple of minutes about it, because
there goes my alarm.
It brought up the areas of my life that I feel blessed by. And it was like nature, having my basic needs met, being in community, creative activity, having a home and a garden, a spiritual practice. And as I wrote them, initially it was just like la-di-da, yes, I've always known this. Of course I'm lucky to have my house, or of course I'm lucky to have the woods nearby. But it went really, really deep. And I realized that I'm not just blessed with these things that I want and that I need. I'm blessed with a huge abundance of them. So, I look at my home and it's like I love my home. It's not just shelter. I look in my fridge and my larder and there isn't just enough food for tonight. There's enough food for a week. I look in my wardrobe. I've got enough clothes to last me the rest of my life. I look at my friends. I have friends who can be there for me in any situation. It's like, so what came to me from each blessing was more this feeling of absolute abundance. so much more than I need. And I really began to feel truly blessed. So the obstacles and the blessings were kind of linked by whoever that lovely person was who left their pebbles on the beach.
I so love that story, Hazel, about the fact that you thought your words had come back and then it was these beautiful blessings. That's just, yeah, that sort of makes me think that when we release our grievances, we make room for the blessings. When we give up all those irksome things that weigh us down, you know, those stones that we carry in our pockets, we sort of make room for the appreciation and for the for that. I don't know, it's like we make room for it. That's all I can sort of say, and it almost is in your story there. Really, really beautiful. And it does link a little with the card I have today, because I don't know if you can see that it's a boat, a ship at the top. I know my camera isn't brilliant, I'll post it in the comments. And then there's a boy holding an anchor. He's like a kind of sailor. Try and do him a bit nearer. He's sort of old-fashioned sailor, and he's connected to the ship that's in a tree. And then there's an anchor that goes down. And it says the word stranded. So it feels like there, perhaps, you know, between our two sort of invitations there is something about, we talked last week about liminal space, the space between the grievance and the gratitude, and the ebb and flow of that. And I also had a thought when you were telling me about your exercise. I was thinking about all the sort of blocks and fears I have as well, and I was thinking, in a way, sometimes it's really good to be grateful for those, because I've got loads of them. Like, one of them is a really obvious big one, is that I don't drive, and I didn't learn to drive when I was younger, and now it's become, you know, I'm nearly 40 and I still don't drive, and it's become such a big fear now because I've avoided it for so long that I've just convinced myself that I can't do that, and all these fears around it, and I have all these nightmares where I'm driving a car and I don't know how to do it, but strangely I've sort of built my life around that block, and so I live somewhere where I can cycle everywhere, and cycling is genuinely the most wonderful thing. I don't do any other exercise other than go on my bike everywhere, and I love it completely. And you know, there are times when it's tricky and I have to get loads of buses and trains and rail replacement buses, etc. But I sort of love that I don't have a car, and I love the fact that that's one way I can be you know, do something towards the environment that's for the good, and so I've built my life around that obstacle, and it makes me think of actual pebbles when they're in a river, and the pebbles guide the flow of the river. You know, like the pebbles, the way that the pebbles are, I don't know if I would explain it very well, but you know, they guide the way that the river goes and that the water flows. And I think a lot of artists do talk about how the limitations can also be the invitations. So the more you know, the more boundaries we put around our practice. Say you're a really busy mum and you only have half an hour a week to spend on your art. You get really clear and focused about that one half an hour a week, and it becomes your weekly practice, and you completely dedicate yourself to it. And in a way, someone that has all the time in the world probably never gets around to doing it. You know, it's like sometimes our limitations mean that we really have to focus, and we really have to work with what we've got.
Yeah. I think one of the other things for me, one of my obstacles was fear. And I was just thinking, it made me really think about what I'm fearful of and how fear drives my life and pushes me in certain directions that are really, you know, a waste of time, actually. And one of my big fears is that I was not really that aware of. I was in denial about it. It was about getting older, because I am getting old now. And it gave me a chance to bring that out into the light. And as you say, when you bring it out into the light, it kind of stops being an obstacle. because you see it for what it really is, and not the, my fear was of the becoming the stereotype, our cultural stereotype of an old woman. And when I brought it out and looked at the reality, it's like, there is no way, even if I tried, that I could be a stereotype. I'm just not. And it released that for me, that, I'm not going to be a stereotype. I'm going to be an old woman, but I'm not going to be that cultural stereotype. So I think, just bringing our obstacles and fears into the light can be so releasing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even that real physical action of throwing them into the sea, there's a release, in a physical release in the body as we do that, isn't there? It's like we really actually physicalize it. And
yeah. And we're not throwing it into another person where it's going to hurt them. We're throwing it into the ocean, which will just happily take it all,
Yeah. And again, I mean, it comes back to a bit to our conversation last week where we talked a lot about nature as a kind of a healing force, and in a way it's like the same with the sea taking our worries. It's amazing how nature can hold us again and again and again. And we can throw thousands of rocks at the sea and it will take them all.
Yeah. And you almost feel it doesn't put up with it, it almost embraces it. It's like, hey, thank you.
It's amazing. It's actually, I mean, before we press the record button, Hazel and I were also talking a little bit about I was talking about what to do when I have a lot of difficult things I'm taking on in my work, and the how sometimes I can get physically exhausted in my body. And Hazel, did you want to share what you suggested to me? Because I feel like it links in.
I'm sure you'd say it much better. But...
so Hazel described that she has like a kind of spirit animal that will take all of that maybe negative energy, pain, suffering, and almost absorb it, a bit like the sea absorbing our rocks. And one of the fairy tales or the stories I like to work with is I love to work with Kafka's Metamorphosis, and one of the things I like most about that story is that Kafka describes how when the boy became a bug, which a boy turns into a bug in the story, he no longer liked fresh food, and he would eat all the rotten things. And that's what nature does, composting things. We that's what I've been working with worms this week with my children I'm working with, and at the moment I'm doing a series of things working with different insects, and I mean, worms are amazing because they take all the rotten things and then compost them and make it into life again. That sort of taking all the negativity, the darkness, the difficulty, the challenge, and then digesting it and allowing that, then the gratitude and the light and that process of really going into the dark before we can meet the light, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So shall I read the little description of this card, and then maybe you could...
It's a beautiful... I love this idea of the boat stuck up a tree, because I think that's kind of... It looks really beautiful. I know it's stranded there, but it does look quite comfortable as well.
Yeah. And it's like that whole thing of, that I suppose it's similar to sort of saying about the blocks and the difficulties. I mean, that is a big block, isn't it? Having your boat stuck up a tree. But yet it's rather beautiful, and so I shall read it, and then... So it says here, misdirection, misjudgment, fear of failure. Looking at this young sailor stranded with his ship on top of a tall tree, he needs his anchor to help him get back down to earth. The card asks, how did the ship get there? This is such an unusual place for a seafaring vessel. At times we feel the same. We find ourselves in situations we can't quite understand. Sometimes we feel we've made mistakes because our expectations are so high. We set ourselves up for failure. We either beat ourselves up over our performance, or we are so intimidated that we never ever really begin. Failure is a necessary part of success, as important to the journey as a rudder on a ship. Yeah.
Mm.
I think I posted on the Speckled Eggs page. I don't know if you saw it, Hazel. Did you see the little clip of the interview between Russell Brand and Elizabeth Gilbert?
Oh yes, wonderful.
Oh look, here we go. Here's our superstar.
Sorry,
I love
sorry, she's late.
She came in about this time last time. It's like this is like her. She knows her entrance time. We've got these kind of funny landmarks. Like my alarm goes off, and then your cat comes in.
In half the garden with her.
Yeah. So I loved this little clip. I mean, she says about writing her novel, The Signature of All Things, about how you know, one of her characters was quite two-dimensional, and everyone said that that character was quite two-dimensional, and she just didn't care. She just decided, well, that's all I've got in me for today. That'll have to do. And I've actually been really taking that approach this week. I had to write something that I was a bit worried about writing, and it's a letter, and I just thought, okay, well, whatever I've got in me right now, that's going to have to be enough. It's never going to be the perfect thing. It's never going to be the right words, perhaps, but it's all I've got in me right now, and it will have to do. And I just think that's such a freeing approach to creativity, isn't it? That we could just...
Yeah. And that idea of that there is a perfect way of doing things is such a huge block, because it just makes us say no, and I can't.
Yeah.
You know, and I've lived a life with so much saying to myself, no, I can't. And it's made my life, you know, much smaller than it needed to be, much tighter. And, you know, when we have a, yes, this is enough kind of attitude. Yes, this is who I am today. This is what I've written. This is what I've painted. This is what I've done.
Yeah.
The reality is always enough.
Yeah, and what you were saying earlier about going into your larder and recognizing that you have more than enough, that even to go a step further and say this is more than enough, as well. That like, you know, as well, that you were saying about your home, like realizing that you have just, it's more than just a shelter, and your wardrobe is like more than enough clothes to last a lifetime. Mine definitely is as well. I have these terrible nightmares where I sort of imagine that if I died, someone would have to clear out my flat, and I think such a morbid thing to think, isn't it? But it's like, yeah, that sort of, even if we could go a step further and say this is all I've got in me right now, and it's more than enough. That I feel like that's a really lovely sort of thing.
Yeah, and it is just it's just what do you call it? It's just a mindset, isn't it? There's no reality to it. There isn't a right or wrong to it. It's just a mindset of it's more than enough or it's not enough.
Yeah.
Just,
yeah. I really feel like the words on this card really speak to me a little bit today. I'm fretting about a new project that I'm starting, which I'm really worried, you know, I'm nervous about, because it's something new that I've never done before, and all of my fear voices are coming up. My inner critic is shouting at me, and who are you to do this, and what makes you think you can do this? And it's really terrifying, but I'm sort of learning that actually that's part of the process. Oh yeah, here we go, here's the voices, you know, let them do all their whatever they do, and just sort of like, and the more I do new things, the more I realize I do fail, but that's great. It's kind of like such a good learning curve, really.
It's true. And I think those voices, that kind of ego voice, you know, we all know it's there just trying to protect us. It's not really trying to put us down. It's trying to protect us from making mistakes that might hurt us and harm us or humiliate us. So it's kind of like, thank you so much for caring, you know, thank you so much for the warning, and then laying it aside and carrying on anyway, isn't it? Is that?
Yeah, and sometimes that physicalizes, doesn't it? We actually have friends and family say that stuff to us. Oh, are you sure you want to do that? You know, and they're just protecting us too. And you know, and
leaving you with that fear of getting your comeuppance.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a funny term, that, isn't it? Your comeuppance. Do you think he's got his comeuppance?
No, I think he's absolutely adorable. And if only he knew, and maybe he does know, how wonderful it is to be standing in a tree holding an anchor with a ship above you. I mean, what a beautiful place to be, stranded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll probably close soon, but I'm just wondering, do you have any memorable experiences or times when you were stranded?
Oh my God, that's putting me on the spot. Have you got one?
I just thought it's an interesting. I mean, the word stranded is really interesting, isn't it?
Well, the one that comes to me literally, which was a literal, was when I was a younger woman, I used to hitchhike a lot.
Mm.
And there were times when I would feel stranded. Somebody would pick me up, drop me off in the middle of nowhere because they were turning off to go home. So it wouldn't be a roundabout, wouldn't be a service station, pouring with rain. And of course, nobody wants to stop and pick up a hitchhiker who's absolutely drenched. And I would often think, am I going to be here all night? Am I just going to die here, standing at the side of this road? And that was a reality in my head at the time. And of course, I never was. Someone always came along and picked me up, and I always got home.
Wow.
And sometimes somebody would buy me a meal, or, I mean, it was, so that feeling of strandedness. Yeah, that's the one that came to mind anyway.
That's wonderful.
I think there must be lots of occasions where emotionally we feel stranded.
Yeah, that's what came to me. I was thinking about my creative practice, actually, and I'm doing a lot of research on different artists at the moment for a project I'm doing, and one of the artists is Tracey Emin, and I watched an interview with her last night, which was really captivating, actually. It was like about midnight last night, and I was just like, I can't not watch this now. It's really drawn me in. And one of the things she talked about was her creative blocks, and it was like you could see her palpable shame around talking about them. Like, oh God, I'm an artist, and I'm admitting here that I have terrible, terrible creative blocks. And I just thought, oh well, that's so liberating, because it's really good to know that even people that are, what we'd see as successful artists have periods of total creative blocks. And I feel like when I'm having a creative block, I feel stranded. That's the feeling. It's like, oh God, I'm stranded between this idea and that idea, and I've no idea how to link the two or to even get going again. I've been doing a writing project, and I've sort of come to a halt just over halfway through, and I can't seem to get going again, and it feels like a kind of being stranded. But like you say, that story of the hitchhiking, it's like, oh yeah, maybe an idea will come along and give me a lift home or a meal.
Oh, God, I so believe in that. Well, I just know it from my life that when I get to those points, it's normally the point where something has been guiding me along. I've been writing or whatever it is. And then my ego comes in and says, oh, I know how to do this. I know how to do this. I know how to, oh, what a great idea. Won't this be good? And then my ego, of course, doesn't know how to do it. So then it all comes to a stop, and it's like, oh, what do I do now? And it is that thing of letting go and trusting, because the beauty, we can't create beauty. Beauty can only come through us, my belief anyway. Beauty can only come through us. Truth can only come through us. So if we think we're trying to do it, of course we're going to get blocked. Yeah, we can't. We can't.
And we also try to go it alone, don't we? Because in that situation with the hitchhiking, you were reliant on other people to come and be there for you and meet that need. And it's like, actually, we do need each other. And the same with ideas and creative projects. I mean, that's kind of why we're doing these conversations, because both of us were working on things alone, separately, working with creativity over lockdown. And it just feels so nice now to bring that into an actual conversation, rather than just being, it's lovely to be alone with your creative projects, but also it's really nice to open that out to a dialogue and meet the other with it. Because I think sometimes if we just stay too long in a kind of vacuum with our ideas or inspiration or projects, it can get quite stale, and we need to sometimes get stranded in order for something else to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's stimulating somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So we are probably coming towards the end. And I think I just want to go back to the imagery of the stones, and just as we finish this conversation, just the that sense of just letting go of all that weight, and also allowing something wonderful to wash up and meet us. Yeah.
And the abundance of, if you go to the beach, the abundance of pebbles on that beach.
Yeah.
There is no lack of pebbles to write our blessings or our obstacles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They always say that on those. I've done some of these money things, and you're like manifesting money, and it's always like, oh, there's just no end to the money that's available to you. And I always think, yeah, right. But then, like, I suppose if you think of it in terms of stones on a beach, that's a good way of recognizing abundance. And I'm just actually coming. Sorry, I know it's a bit of a side note, but I'm just coming to the end of doing the Deepak Chopra 21-day abundance meditation. And interestingly, I did it last summer. And I was thinking, I just need to really connect in with my abundance because I was worried about debt, etc. And towards the end of it, I don't know if you remember, but in Hastings, all those fish washed up on the shore, thousands and thousands and thousands of fish were gifted by the ocean, and they were silver whitebait. I mean, it was a bit upsetting actually because I didn't like seeing all the fish die, but there was just thousands and thousands of silver whitebait washed up on the beach just opposite my house, and it was just the most powerful sign of abundance I've ever seen. It's like, this is the ocean gifting, and people were collecting it and freezing it and taking it home, and thinking, gosh, it's like amazing seeing the ocean gift this free fish. I mean, I found that really extraordinary to see, and the whole beach was lined with silver. I mean, it was just extraordinary. Yeah, maybe I'll post a picture of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Oh, thank you so much, Hazel. It's so lovely. And
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
No, just looking forward to our next conversation.
Yeah. We were both saying that as well, like, it's really nice to hear these conversations on a Monday morning and then see how it arrives into your week as well. Because I certainly had some experiences last week that really connected in with last week's conversation. So yeah, it's nice to see what pebbles wash up for people, and maybe people could write it in the comments. Yeah.
Lovely.
Thank you, Hazel. All right.
Thank you. Bye, Anna. Bye.